there, my very good friends. Andy Murray here for What Culture Wrestling, and today we are going to talk about the secret stat behind why AEW's matches mean more. And you know it's a secret because the folder says confidential on it. But before we do that, let's cast our minds back to January 2019 to AEW's launch press conference in Jacksonville, Florida, and this quote from Cody Rhodes: "Wins and losses will matter in AEW like they have never mattered before." Let's break that down. So what exactly is Cody saying here? Well, obviously he's saying wins and losses matter. Those are his literal words. But beneath that, it's clear that this was part of a grander strategy from the promotion to differentiate themselves from what was currently on offer elsewhere, from what this guy was putting out on Raw and SmackDown. They needed to establish themselves as an alternative. If they wanted to go head to head with Goliath, if they wanted to tackle an American marketplace that had been an effective monopoly for 20 goddamn years, they had to be different. And if you go over to Vince McMahon's world, well, you know, professional wrestling is sports entertainment. Wrestlers are superstars. You are not a fan, you're a member of the WWE universe. And I don't think it's even a controversial statement to say that in WWE's world, for better or worse, wins and losses don't always mean that much, right? I mean, a couple of years ago, Road Dogg literally said this on Twitter. AEW's strategy was to appeal to the fans, the hundreds and thousands and maybe even millions of fans whose itch for pro wrestling wasn't being scratched by what this dude was serving up. They were trying to speak to the lapsed fan, to the guy who grew up, or the girl who grew up watching professional wrestling 10, 20 years ago and tunes into Raw and SmackDown now and goes, you know what? It's just not the same. They were trying to pull them back in. And a big part of that was re-establishing the competitive framework that pro wrestling used to exist on. And it's a pretty straightforward system. Win and you'll advance, lose and you will fall down. It's obviously weighted a little bit depending on the caliber of opposition, because I know if you're Jon Moxley and you beat Chris Jericho, that's obviously worth a little bit more than if you're Jon Moxley and it takes you half an hour to beat poor QT Marshall. There has to be that level of flexibility, and there has been so far. And all of this, of course, is rounded up and tied up in a nice little bow by records, the most important statistic that AEW has. The promotion hits you with these numbers at every opportunity, really. You tune into any AEW show and you're going to know the win-loss record of whoever's competing because it's right there in their lower third as they enter the ring. And if you go on their website, it's really comprehensive. The roster listing has career records, year-specific records, singles matches, tag team matches, trios matches. Bottom line, if you want to find out how many matches any AEW wrestler has won or lost, you can get it. You can figure it out within like 5 seconds of the thought popping into your head, whether you're watching a show or just fanning around with your phone on the couch. And while the numbers aren't the be-all end-all of AEW's booking, they are important, and they are supported by a ranking system that, despite what a few bad faith actors and trolls might say, rarely defy logic. I've got the latest set of AEW's men's singles rankings here. And man, okay, obviously you've got Jon Moxley and Brody Lee as the champions. They're separate to everyone else. But look at the next 5 guys here, right? Lance Archer, Brian Cage, MJF, Cody, and Scorpio Sky. Now, can you really sit there and say, hey, that's not the top 5 singles artists, singles wrestlers in AEW's men's division at the moment? You could probably pick hairs with Scorpio Sky, right? I'm sure there are any number of upper mid-card wrestlers who are in slightly better form, maybe just debatably, than the SCU guy at the moment. But that's the thing, it's debatable. Nobody can sit here and go, Scorpio Sky has no place on these rankings. It would be a silly argument. The point being is that the ranking system, for the most part, it's pretty accurate. Sorry, trolls, but it is. So in conclusion, AEW have devised a system here that is robust, it's effective, it's logical, it's not flawless, but you can rarely look at something from this system, from this competitive framework and go, well, that makes no goddamn sense. However, despite these systems and despite the success they've had in differentiating AEW from WWE, they aren't the real reason that AEW matches mean more. To understand that, let's go to an interview that Tony Khan, the AEW president, gave to Pro Wrestling Torch's Wade Keller in October 2019, just before Dynamite launched. During this interview, Tony Khan made it very clear that respecting his audience's intelligence was a big part of what he wanted to do going forward. He promised to do so, and a big part of that was avoiding screwy finishes. Here's an exact quote. "We haven't done disqualifications, we haven't done ridiculous ref bumps, and we try to present a wrestling show that doesn't insult people's intelligence." And again, this is a savvy move. This is another part of the strategy to differentiate yourself from this guy. Because as we all know, screwy finishes, DQs, countouts, whatever the hell else, have been one of fans' biggest complaints about the WWE product for ever, basically. And Tony Khan and AEW have since delivered on this promise spectacularly. Got some numbers here for you. So far, at the time I'm recording this, AEW has held a total of 8 pay-per-views with 8 buy-in pre-shows, 52 episodes of Dark, 50 of Dynamite, plus, of course, the Women's Deadly Draw Tag Team Tournament, 3 episodes of that on YouTube. That's a lot of pro wrestling. In total, according to Cage Match at the time of recording, they have held 632 matches. And in this time, dear viewer, how many screwy finishes have they booked? How many? Give you a moment to think about that. You might think 20, 30, 40. The answer is 5. Literally 5. This breaks down as 1 disqualification, 1 countout, 2 time limit draws, and 1 double countout. And if you break this down, if you do the math, you find out that AEW books an average of 1 screwy finish every 126.4 matches. WWE, meanwhile, has already booked 6 screwy finishes in the month of September, which is 18 days old as I sit here. So in one company, the screwy finish is a go-to booking practice. In the other one, well, they avoid it like the plague. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that AEW is reinventing the wheel by doing this, because they're not. This is a product of Tony Khan's influences. We know he's a huge All Japan fan, a huge Mid-South fan. And of course, New Japan Pro Wrestling across the Pacific Ocean have been operating on this kind of framework without expressly telling you the win-loss records for ages. They are currently in the most successful business period in the company's history, and their nickname is literally the King of Sports, right? Wins and losses matter there. It's more of a real sport feel, and they're immensely successful for it. It's not something that AEW is doing for the first time, but it's something they're doing well. Meanwhile, WWE audiences have been conditioned to receive these things, these DQs and other nonsense, as normal. It's just something that a lot of people shrug off now and go, hey, well, keeps that guy protected, he didn't take a clean loss, but I don't know, man, let's take a look at Keith Lee, right? So he beats Randy Orton at Payback. Awesome, tremendous, beats him clean in 7 minutes, that's great. But 3 of Keith Lee's main roster matches so far have had screwy finishes. Since beating Randy Orton, he has now had 2 of them in a row. And what is he? He's not a protagonist in his own story, he's become this peripheral figure in someone else's story. He has been diminished because he's working no contests and DQs. Disqualifications, countouts, and everything else aren't inherently bad. Let's make that point. They can be used to good effect. They can be useful, but not with the frequency that WWE spams them. We are now at a point, in fact, we've been at this point for a long time, where if WWE advertises Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee for Raw, as they did this very week of recording, it's very hard to tune in good faith, because you're going to look at that billboard and go, well, neither of them's going to lose, so Retribution are going to come down from the rafters and beat them up, and I, the viewer, am not going to see a finish. It is a tired, raisin-balled practice that creates a universe in which nothing that happens in the ring truly matters except for special occasions. And it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, because these people, scripted or otherwise, are playing professional combat sport athletes. Winning and losing should be everything. And if you want to go deeper than this and break down the nature of AEW's 5 screwy finishes, well, The gap only widens. Let's take the DQ. That was Pac cracking Kenny Omega with a steel chair to take a willing disqualification as part of an Iron Man match so that he could beat Kenny up and win the next fall. It was a strategy. And it didn't even end the match. How about the countouts? Well, the one-sided countout was Peter Avalon versus Michael Nakazawa for a comedy spot between two jobbers on Dark. The double countout was also on Dark. It was Peter Avalon, it was Brandon Cutler, who had a combined record of 0-52. Their gimmick is that they literally cannot win. So what more appropriate match finish could you have for guys who are incapable of winning than a double countout? As for the time limit draws, well, we got Fyter Fest 2019, Cody versus Darby Allin. Was that 20-minute time limit draw not effective in establishing that Darby Allin could hang with the company ace Cody for 20 minutes, thus getting him over in the process? And then the second time limit draw was on Dynamite, Jon Moxley and Pac, which served two purposes. Number one, it riled Moxley up and got him really pissed off for his feud with Kenny Omega. And number two, it established that these were a thing that could happen if Dynamite ran out of time on TNT. And they haven't spammed it since then. And the difference between these AEW finishes and the raft that WWE books every single week is that none of the AEW ones can really be called cop-outs. We're not even talking night and day here. We're talking different universes. And I've sat here and told you all of this without even mentioning the most harmful finish in pro wrestling today, the universally destructive distraction finish, where one wrestler takes their eye off the ball, looks to some dork on the apron or the ramp or whatever, goes, and somehow gets themselves rolled up and loses like the biggest idiot in the world. It literally never works. AEW, to my memory, has done one of them so far on the 8th of January, and this guy, he loves them. Or how about the personal favourite of my esteemed colleague Simon Miller, the he stole one roll-up, where someone gets rolled up and is presented as a complete fluke, which means the winner is somebody who's lucky and wins nothing, gains nothing, while the loser, well, they slipped on a banana peel and they look like a numpty. It's, you know, AEW has done roll-up finishes. They do them every other week. Guys like Jungle Boy Riho made a whole title reign out of it, but the difference is they're not framing these things as flukes. The commentators aren't sitting there going, well, he sure did get lucky there. No, it's put over as a product of skill, timing, and ingenuity. And really, it's the same thing WWE should be doing. It's not that hard. And all of this plays into how AEW has truly made wins and losses matter in professional wrestling, once again fulfilling Cody's promise. If you tune into Dynamite and you know the main event is going to be, say, Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho, you can do so knowing that the odds of you getting, the chances of you getting a crappy DQ or a countout or other silly non-finish are literally less than 1%. Your good faith, your investment, everything you've put into the product will be repaid. You learn to trust the process because the process rewards you. But if two big names get paired up against each other on WWE Raw and neither of them can lose, you're getting rubbish. You're getting garbage. And why would you invest in that? Why would you invest in a result that means nothing? Just over 5 years ago, WWE entered 2015 with a Raw viewership hovering somewhere around the 4 million mark. If they're lucky, they will leave 2020 with a viewership, I don't know, around 1.8 million. And they wonder why people are tuning out. Anyway, guys, that's it. My take is done. As always, however, I want to know what you guys think. So go ahead and hit the comment section below. Let's get a conversation going. And once you've done that, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can ring the bell for notifications. You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and you can find me on Twitter at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.